everyone, my name is Kaikun6 and I'm here to give you the second episode of my project called Playlist Stories. Okay, I had no idea what I was gonna do for the second episode, and I don't know if I was gonna do it like weekly or something like that, but like all I know is that I was asking like my friend for feedback from, you know, my previous video, and he told me, you know, don't use nicknames, don't use fake names, because people will think that, you know, those names will be, you know, talking about them, and then they might come after you. And I was like, you know, you're right, so what should I do? So he came up with the theory of nicknames. Like not many people have the same nickname unless, you know, you grew up from the same town or something like that. So I was like, all right, cool, let's I'll use some nicknames. Okay, so thank you, Choji, for giving me the recommended, because I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. So anyway, this memory, or let's talk about this song. All I remember was it was 2003, and my brother was like, you know, coming out of work and was just like, hey, guess what happened? And I was like, what? There's this new CD that came out, and it's called Results May Vary by Limp Bizkit. And I was like, okay, cool, you know, we listened to the other ones before, right? And I've been listening to the same bands since like the 90s, so, you know, and I still listen to them as of today, you know, like no matter what, I always enjoy listening to Limp Bizkit. I am like one of the casual listeners ever since, you know, and all I ever do is listen to them every day, other than, you know, some other stuff that was on my playlist on Spotify. But so I remember him buying the CD eventually, and he played that freaking album over and over again, right? And I was like, I'm in love with this album, you know, and I still listen to it today, and it's still my #1 favorite album. So excuse me, I still have like a little cough recovering from last week, so if you hear me clear my throat or see me drink some water, you know, ignore that. So eventually, anyway, so let's so I remember listening to this album, and I was like, I really like this album, right? So now let's fast forward, 2010. I don't remember if it was like a few months before graduation or whatever, but all I remember was there was still some drama going on. And if you watched my previous episode, we were talking about Drew and his drama with, you know, with the girl. So anyway, so there was like this, you know, this particular event in my life, right? It happened, and my friend Choji, which is the guy that gave me the feedback, you know, he told me about this dude that he's been talking to, and he wanted to introduce me to him. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, like I remember mentioning that he likes certain games and certain stuff, and then I mentioned you to him, and then he wanted to get to know you. And I was like, all right, cool, introduce me to him. So he sent me like information about this guy, and I'm gonna nickname him Female. A reason why I gave him that nickname was because at the time he complained so much that, you know, it sounded like he was like a female. But so it was kind of funny, you know. Excuse me. So we went to go talk. So I went to go like immediately talk to him on Facebook, because I added him on Facebook. We started messaging each other almost every day, and then eventually it led to texting. So I remember this one day in school when I was texting him, I told him about the science teacher that I'm in class with, and he was like, oh, you know, can you tell him that I like him, because he's like one of my favorite teachers. And I was sure. So I remember after class, I went to go talk to him, and he was like, I noticed you texting. So I didn't say anything because, you know, this is like your first offense or whatever, or your first warning. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. But like the reason why I was texting is because one of your previous students, I know him very well, and he's like one of your favorite teachers. And he's like, who is this? So it's like, oh, it's so and so. And he was like, I remember him. He was such a good student, but you know, he was a talker. And so we were laughing. So he was like, all right, tell him that, you know, tell him hi, and that hopefully he's doing really well. And I was like, all right, cool. So eventually, after that, I was texting him so much, and we were trying to get to know each other more. Like I told him about like what kind of games I'm playing, what music I was listening to, And then he was saying at the time that like, oh, I like to play, you know, Street Fighter. I do a lot of Guitar Hero and this. And I was just like, all right, cool. And then he was saying that his favorite band, and I think it is still as of today, I'm not sure because I haven't talked to him in years. But at the time, he said that Linkin Park has always been his favorite band. I was like, oh, okay, cool, you know. So I was like, I like listening to them too, but, excuse me, they're not anything like Limp Bizkit for me, because like it's like it touched my soul so much, and I was like, oh my god, I just love that band so much. So eventually I got to share some music with him with Limp Bizkit, and he was just like, all right, cool. So I don't know, I want to say now, let's fast forward to maybe sometime around this year, and it was like 12 years ago. Oh my god, that's been a long time actually. Yeah. Excuse me. I started texting him saying like, I want you to meet like some friends of mine or whatever, and he was just like, no, I want to meet you first. And I was like, oh shit, you know, like, is this serious? Because eventually I started developing a crush on him, and all I wanted to do was just like text the guy all the time, and I was like, okay, let's see what happens. So there was this time where the previous people that I mentioned in the previous video, they were telling me like, hey, we noticed that you were texting this guy for like months, we want to know what was up. And I was just like, oh, you know, I'm talking to this dude, his name is so and so, and I really like him, but and he wants to meet up in person, what should I do? And she's like, go for it, right? So so eventually I went to go wear a dress and some shoes and stuff like that. I wanted to look, you know, my best to him. So I ended up picking a day for him to show up at this particular location, and we met up over there at said location. And it's so funny because it's a park behind the high school, and I don't know the name of the freaking park, I really don't, but all I remember was it was always called Stoner Park. And my friend Choji told me the origins of it, but then I'm like, oh, I remember this version, but then this is the version that I remembered, where how it happened was, why was it called Stoner Park is that a lot of students caught a certain teacher smoking pot there, and then ever since then we've noticed, like, you know, certain individuals at the park started, you know, doing drugs and pot and other stuff. It was just funny. So eventually that park earned its nickname, Stoner Park. So I went to go meet him at Stoner Park after school one day, and I was like, oh my god, what is he gonna think about me? Like, does he like me or whatever? So I was just like, all right, cool, you know what, forget it, like, I'm just gonna go. So I went over there, went to go meet him in person, and I was like, yeah, he looks very different in his photos. But what I really liked about him was his eyes. And he had, in certain lighting, it's hazel eyes. And if he's completely like in the shade, he's you know, green eyes. So I was like, cool. I eventually started, like, you know, telling him like, oh, you have really nice eyes. And he's like, all the girls tell me that. And I was like, whatever. So he and I, it kind of got awkward at first, you know, and then, you know, eventually we just started kind of like easing each other into conversation. I was like, what was that? Anyway, so eventually I started to, you know, tell him, you know, like, oh, you know, like, if you want to, we can wait, so that way we can have some other friends come over and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, I don't mind that, but I just wanted to meet you in person. I was just like, all right, cool, you know, like, a guy that I like wants to meet me in person, cool. So eventually a friend of mine showed up, and we're gonna give her the nickname It Girl. So It Girl showed up and was just like, is this the guy? You know, is this the guy? And I was like, yeah, it's the guy. Excuse me. So she started to, you know, like, telling me like, oh, I can see why the girls like him and stuff like that. And I was just like, you do? And she's like, yeah, I can see why you like him. So they hit it off, right? So I introduced her to It Girl, and then they hit it off, and then eventually, you know, they added each other on Facebook, exchanged numbers, and then eventually some other friends started showing up, and they left. And it was kind of like an ordinary day for me, I guess, when we were hanging out in high school. So eventually, you know, I had to go home, he had to go home. So he ended up, you know, going home. And after that, he was like texting me like crazy, like, hey, I like your friend and I want to ask her out. And I was just like, oh, okay, sure, you know, whatever. So I was like thinking like, oh, maybe he doesn't like me or whatever. So I'm like, oh, that's cool, we could still be friends. Because like all that mattered was like, yes, I had a crush on the guy, but I still wanted to be his friend. So I was like, okay, cool. He wanted to know so much things about her, like how, what is she like what is she like in person without, you know, me being there, and this and that. And I was just like, these questions are getting way too personal. And for somebody from her background, she don't share much because she's been hurt before and she's been like judged by her peers in high school. So it was kind of hard for her to open up. So so I kept like texting her like, dude, you need to talk to this guy. And she was like, no, I don't want to. Or maybe she wanted to, but then she didn't want to give him, you know, mixed signals, which she eventually did anyway. So there was a point in time, like weeks and weeks after this whole conversation, he was still texting me, wanted to get to know her. So finally I got fed up with it. I was just like, okay, let's go meet up in person and let's go, you know, talk about this, you know. So he was like, cool, are you gonna invite your friend? I was like, yeah. So I invited it girl and female to Stoner Park again. And we were like, hey, you know, talk this out, you know. And they were like, no, I don't want, oh, she said, no, I don't want it. And he was like, come on, I really like you, I want to get to know you and stuff like that. And then eventually she opened up about her identity and then her situation, which she's hermaphrodite. And she identified herself as, you know, as a woman. And he was like, I don't understand that. So she explained like her, you know, her bodily structure, her situation technically. And he was like, oh, I don't care about that, it's just you look like a girl, so that's all that matters. And then she was just like, you know, like I don't know what to think about this. So eventually, I want to say now, I want to say maybe around October, I want to say, of 2010. Because all I remember was I was already finally in college, I think. No, I wasn't. I was trying to prepare to go to college, I think. I don't know. Anyway, I don't remember. But it was like, I knew it was like around October because after that, I started dating another guy. Or I started dating like my first local boyfriend, and then, you know, like I'll just tell you that story eventually. But during this time, like in between that, what happened that day and then all the way to October, we were doing like these hangouts. Like we started going to like our school's football games, and there was a lot like girls that we invited, including some guy friends, and one of which was my ex at the time. And he was like, you know, since he's talking to these other girls, like, why don't we go out? And I was just like, no, thank you, I don't want to, because I'm like, I just see you as a friend for now. And he was like, come on, I had a crush on you since high school, at least, like, you know, give me a chance. And excuse me, oh my goodness, I was like, I don't know if I should. Anyway, so I mean, I eventually gave him a chance, sure, but I'll just tell you about that in a future video. So eventually he kind of gave up a little bit because I told him that there was another girl that was interested in him, and I'm just gonna nickname her Kitty because she loves cats. So she tried, you know, like, but she was jailbait at the time, so she was too young. So he was kind of like, no, I'm just gonna wait for you until you actually say yes, and, you know, whatever. So anyway, female knew about this and tried to take advantage of the situation, I guess, because he thought that I was actually going to go out with, you know, my ex, and at the time. And he was like, okay, I need to do something real quick. So he started kind of like sending me flirty messages, like after that event in the football games, because like eventually, once one of the events, I had to go take him home because he had no ride home. Because it's so funny, my ex's sister what was one of the girls he was fucking at the time, and, you know, or whatever, they just got along really well, so I just thought maybe they were fucking, I don't know. So I went to go take him home, he met my mom and my sister, and my mom and my sister was like, no, we don't like the guy. So I was like, okay, cool. Now you're gonna tell my brother, and then my brother's gonna be an asshole to me. So because I told my brother about the guy, and he was like, I don't like him. Something about him is just screaming like red flags. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. And then so eventually after that, he started like texting me, like he's like, I gave up on your friend. And I was like, why? It's like, oh, she just straight up said no, and I was wondering why. So I went to go message her, and she was just like, no, because like I have some screenshots that you need to, you know, see. And I was like, what happened? He like straight up was like, I want to go out with her. Like it showed on the screenshots. It was like, I want to go out with you, but I'm interested in your friend instead. And if there's a chance that, you know, both of us can bang, you know, like with your friend, that'd be awesome. And I was just like, are you kidding me? He was asking for a threesome, and she was like, yes. And girl, you know, I don't swing that way. Like, I'm a one-man person. I ain't a fucking hoe. I ain't this and this. I was just like, okay, all right, same here. I'm not interested in that. So, you know, there goes like whatever image I had of female. But eventually, you know, my dumb brain, my young dumb brain back then was just like, well, I still have a crush on this guy, you know, like give him another chance, right? So there was a moment sometime in October, I was like fed up with, you know, him going back and forth between me and her. And I was like, okay, maybe I should tell him that, you know, I should give up and I'm not going to talk to him, right? And like I said, it got really personal. It really did, because he started sending me pictures of like himself, like selfies, and of course other stuff. Because at the time, everybody was doing nudes as like a normal thing. And it was like a new thing, of course. But for me, I was just like, whoa, I got to see his private parts, you know. And I was just like, I ain't about that. So eventually I started doing that. Like, I wanted to send nudes to him, and I did. And I was like, oh boy, what is he gonna think? And, you know, at the time I had body image issues also, because the reason why was because, like, I was one of the first girls in my school that developed early. Like, I started getting, you know, chest and an ass. And I always thought that the guys that came up to me to talk to me was just like, all they were ever interested in was just like my body parts. And I was like, no, I don't want that. So it kind of led to like some of my self-esteem go really low. But it got to the point where I was like, okay, there was an actual guy in high school that was really interested in me just for me. And I was like, you know what, maybe I should give him a chance. But I never did till later on, and I'll tell you in a future video, like I said. So sometime, it was like the beginning of October, I was getting fed up with it, of him talking between me and it girl. So I just said, okay, I'm gonna lay down the law, and hopefully I'll give, you know, my ex a try. So he was like, oh no, I gave up on your friend. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, cool. And then eventually he started talking to another girl, and oh my gosh, she was such a bitch. I still remember her. And I don't know, I just never liked her. She was in another group of friends of mine. Like, it was like another circle of friends that I don't talk to as of today. But one of them I still talk to, because she married a childhood friend of mine. So it was like a small world, right? So I went to go, you know, confront him, and I was just like, okay, what should we do? And he was like, you know, come on over and I'll show you what's up, or whatever. I was like, okay, sure. We're gonna have friends there or something? He was like, no, it's just gonna be you and me. And I was like, fuck, how am I gonna tell my mom? Because at the time I didn't have a car or a license yet. So I told I kind of lied to my mom, saying like, yeah, we're gonna have some guy friends over there and some girls. So it's gonna be like a small gathering and stuff like that. And then she was like, you know, kind of suspicious. And I think she knew what happened, but I never told her about what really happened. And she don't understand that much English anyway, so she watches this video, you know, I don't think she understands unless my siblings, you know, translate the video for her. But like, it's whatever. She's gonna find out eventually. And I think she knew, but she wanted me to tell her. But anyway, I went to go to his place thanks to my mom. She dropped me off. She was kind of like worried, like, are you sure? Because you know, what if he does something to you? And I was just like, I'll be fine. I really will. So then I went to go hang out with him in his, like, you know, area, and it was a trailer park. So we went to go chill, and I don't know, we were just talking, and eventually he was like, you know, there's a lot of things I need to tell you before, you know, what I'm thinking about doing. And I was just like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he was like, I'm really interested in you, but you know, there's a lot of things going on with my life that I just really can't tell you. And I was just like, what's going on? And I really wanted to know. And I found out after the incident through, you know, me snooping a little bit after all that, but I'll tell you about that in a bit. I was like confused because I was just like, what's going on? So he was like, you know, he really liked me and he wanted to go out with me, but, you know, he wasn't really like interested in a relationship. And I was just like, I'm not either, you know, because you know, I'm only concentrating on going to college and then hopefully, you know, getting good grades and all that, and maybe I'll think about dating after that. But of course, it didn't happen anyway, because a lot of stuff happened after this incident, and so I was just like, oh, okay, I need to talk about it in a future video. So I went to go, you know, eventually we went to his room, and at the time his parents weren't home because he was living with his parents, and he was working like a part-time job for sure, I think, but he was hoeing himself around. But anyway, his sister and his niece were home, and I was like, oh, you know, like, am I gonna meet them? I never met her, so, or the niece. So I was like, thank goodness. So she was wondering who the fuck was here. Female was just like, yeah, it's me, you know, your brother, whatever. So eventually, I was chilling in his room with him, and we were like playing some games. It was fun. And then the sister kept like badgering him and stuff like that, like even texting him saying like, who the fuck is in that room? And he kept saying it was a friend. Don't worry about it. I'm like, oh fuck, I'm gonna get in trouble, you know, with his family. So eventually there was a moment where we stopped playing games and we stopped listening to music, and then eventually he was just like, I want to kiss you. And I was like, oh, you know, like, I don't know that. I told him that I don't know nothing about that. And he was like, what do you mean? Like, didn't you date some other dudes before me? I said, no. Like, in reality, you're like, in reality, you're the first guy ever. And he was like, what? That's crazy. So does that mean you're a virgin? And I said, yes, I am a virgin. And then so it kind of gave him like this, I guess it was like the green, you know, the green light to like do whatever he wanted to me. I don't know, but all I know is that he asked for consent and I gave him the consent for sure. But I had no idea, you know, how I was gonna feel after this, because it was like I was floating in space and in time. Like, what am I supposed to do? You know, how am I supposed to explain this to my family and my friends? And, you know, eventually I did. So what happened? Okay, so I ended up kissing the dude, and, you know, he was feeling me and everything, and I was just like, okay, so this is how it is, okay, because I've never experienced this ever in my life. So we did the deed, and I was fucking bleeding like crazy. Like, I was fucking bleeding. So I went to, I rushed to the bathroom. I cleaned myself. Luckily, he has an older sister that has pads. So we, so I ended up using like a pad. And he was like, okay, are you okay? And this and that. He was just like wondering if I was okay. And I said, yeah. And then he was like, oh, don't worry about it if you get pregnant. I was just like, wait, what? And I told him that I don't easily get pregnant, because when I was 15, I was diagnosed with PCOS. So, and then I have that hormone imbalance too. So it's like so hard for me to get pregnant, unless, you know, I get a surgery for it or find ways to make me have a baby or something. So he was just like, are you serious? I was like, yeah, I can get pregnant. And he was like, oh, that's cool. Apparently, like, that was like a kink for him, because it was like he thought that maybe I'll fuck him again or something, and then he won't have to worry about the repercussions of pregnancy. So I was like, you know, like, I didn't know what to think. I really did not, because I didn't feel, you know, I did feel different, of course, but I didn't feel like I was like trash, dirty, or, well, dirty a little bit because of what happened, but like like insignificant, like nothing, or like I was a piece of poo or something. No, I didn't felt like that. I just didn't know how to feel. And then after that, I decided, you know, I was like, what am I gonna do? Because he kept messaging me every day, like apologizing. I kept saying that, no, it's fine, I just never experienced it before. He was like, well, maybe the next time we do, you know, have sex, that maybe, you know, we could actually, like, it'll be easier on you. And I was just like, oh, I don't know. I was like, I'm not planning on meeting this dude again, because I already plan on blocking him on Facebook and stop messaging him, this and this. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So I remember coming home that night, my mom was just like, so your friends were there? And I was just like, yeah, like what's wrong? So I lied to her. I had to lie to her because I didn't want to tell her that, yes, your daughter lost her virginity to an asshole, basically. And she was trying to do the mom thing, you know, kind of like, come on, just tell me what happened. I was like, I'm not gonna tell her. I remember rushing to my sister once I came home, and I told her what happened, and she was like, no fucking way. And I was like, yeah. So I showed her my bloody underwear, and she was like, oh my god. So I had to wear a pad throughout that whole night, and then the next day I felt a little bit better. I stopped bleeding. I don't know. I was like, what was that? Sorry. So I decided to, like, you know, do what I have to do, you know, move on with my life and see what happens. So I started hanging out with friends again, because, like, if there was a moment where we all got busy in our lives. I think they were trying to get into college, or they were trying to get a job. So eventually we started hanging out, and then I got a text message from a female saying that, hey, where are you? And I was just like, oh, I'm hanging out with my friends at Stoner Park. Why? He's like, I want to talk to you. And I was like, no. So eventually I had to send it girl to go talk to him, because I didn't want to. And then I think he got the message finally, because as soon as it was like almost to my brother's birthday, and his birthday is like on Halloween, so he just eventually stopped, and he didn't want to talk to me no more. And I was just like, thank goodness, because I did not know how to handle this situation. Because I remember a week after that incident happened, I had to talk to Choji and, you know, like a mutual friend of his and mine. I'm just gonna name him Sparky, because that was his, like, you know, nickname in high school too. Well, he had other nicknames, but Sparky was one of them. It was so funny. So Choji and Sparky, you know, like, we talked to him, and, well, like, I talked to him, and I eventually, like, cried in front of them, telling them, like, you know, what am I supposed to do? And they were like, there, you know, nothing really happened. It was just your first time. A lot of girls feel this way, so it's not a big deal and stuff. And I was like, really? And it's like, yeah, like, believe me, well, Choji don't have experience, but, well, at the time, no, but, you know, Sparky did. So he was like, yeah, like, I've slept with so many girls, so you don't have to worry about that. I'm like, okay, cool. That's really weird. But anyway, so he, you know, so we were just chilling throughout the whole time, and then eventually, you know, things were okay since then. So I haven't talked to him, messaged him, but, like, then a week before, actually a few days before I decided to block him or just delete him off of Facebook, there was some tea spilled on his Facebook, and I was like, ooh, I need to find out what it is. So remember the girl that I mentioned before, the one that I called her a bitch to? She got on his personal, like, Facebook profile, started arguing with another individual, and her nickname is the Whale, and that was, like, her nickname back in high school. Oh boy. So what happened was, Whale found out about the bitch, but she never found out about me. I don't know if she ever did or whatever. So what happened was, they started arguing over Facebook, and then he was like, come on, girls, we can just talk this out like adults and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, fuck no, I don't care. And apparently at the time, she's the baby mama. Like, she was pregnant with his kid. And I was like, what the fuck? There's no way. Then eventually I found out that he was a registered sex offender. And I was like, why? And then I remembered a conversation that he and I had before, was that he used to date girls or slept with girls that were, like, younger than me, and at the time I was 18. So I was like, oh, so, you know, maybe he's a predator. but because like I thought that maybe because since I was 18 it was gonna be okay, and yeah, it was okay, but still it was like, oh, you know, like maybe I was just another number to him. And I don't know, as of today I still think that way, but you know, it was just like one of those moments in my life that I'm never gonna forget. And I just hope he's happy, that's all, because eventually I found out like a year later after that drama happened, I think he's still with her, and I know he has 2 kids, maybe 3, and you know, he worked at a local grocery store over there, so I don't know. But all I know is that it was like a very surreal moment for me, because I had never thought I was going to lose my virginity to this guy, and I really did like him, I really did. But you know, after what happened, I was just like, I'm not sure anymore. And I was kind of glad that I never, you know, pursued the friendship anymore, because maybe he wanted to do it again, and then that's it. Maybe he'll just call me up for booty call, and I was like, nah bruh, I'm not interested in that. So anyway, that concludes this today's episode. I hope with this song that you have in mind, hopefully you don't think of that. Like, I hope this song makes you think of other memories. But for me, this song will always connect that memory, honestly, because every single time I hear it, I could still like imagine myself in that bedroom. And honestly, it wasn't even like, I don't know how to describe it, because it was neither traumatizing for me at the time, and then neither important, because I knew eventually I was going to lose my virginity at one point, but I didn't realize it was going to be with, you know, that individual. And it's so funny, because I remember not that long after, I listened to this song in that album, and for some reason it explained it perfectly, like the lyrics and everything, like how I felt after, you know, losing my virginity to him. So I was like, wow, so this is gonna be something I'm never gonna forget, honestly. And every single time whenever I talk to my friends, when we start, you know, talking about certain memories in our life, you know, my friend Choji would sometimes bring up female, and we just start talking shit. But honestly, that's all I could ever, you know, that's all I ever hope for. It's just, he's just a memory. Hopefully he never comes back into my life, and that I just hope he's happy, because in the beginning he looked like he was very miserable, and all he wanted was a friend, and I was one of the friends, and I hope I at least made his life a little bit better, because hearing from like his personal stories and stuff, like it was just so sad, because it was like something I could relate to. I mean, like I have supportive parents, but you know, they were divorced, and his parents were always together, but they argued a lot, and it resulted in like a really broken home. It really did. So I just thought that maybe like my friendship, and then Choji's friendship, and then everybody else that, you know, talked to the guy, was like, you know, it made him happy. So that's all I hope for. So anyway, that's it. That's the end of the memory, and hopefully next week I'll tune in for another episode for, who knows, maybe the next episode it will be my ex, or maybe it will be the sort of the similar situation to this episode, but then a different song. But if I listen to this other song, maybe there'll be another memory like unlocked in my brain that maybe I could remember. So all I can say is bye everyone. Hopefully I can see you guys in the next video, so tune in. All right, bye.